Look around you. Two people can walk through the same city, work in the same company, read the same news, meet the same people, and yet one of them sees nothing. The other sees possibilities everywhere. A problem becomes a business. A stranger becomes a connection. A new technology becomes a career move. A mistake becomes information. A change that scares everyone else becomes an opening. It can look like some people are simply better at finding opportunities. Luckier, more intelligent, more connected. But that's not the most interesting explanation, because opportunities are rarely as invisible as we think. Sometimes they're right in front of you, and your brain simply doesn't classify them as opportunities. Your attention is not neutral. It is selective. Every second, your brain is processing an enormous amount of information. Sounds, faces, words, problems, patterns, changes, possibilities. You cannot consciously process all of it. So your brain has to decide what deserves your attention. And one of the strongest factors influencing that decision is what you already believe matters. This creates a strange paradox. The person who expects opportunities is more likely to notice them, and the person who expects obstacles is more likely to notice obstacles. Same environment, different reality. Imagine two employees hearing the same announcement at work. The company is introducing a new AI system. One person thinks, "Great, this is going to replace people." The other thinks, "Interesting. What can this system do that nobody on my team knows how to use yet?" The information is identical, but their brains immediately begin searching for different evidence. The first person starts looking for threats. The second starts looking for leverage. And this is where opportunity becomes psychological. Because an opportunity is not simply something that exists. It is something you recognize. Think about how many things were considered useless before someone understood their potential. A vacant building, a strange piece of technology, a niche audience, a frustrating problem, a skill nobody around you had, a change everyone complained about. The opportunity wasn't necessarily created when someone acted on it. Sometimes it became visible when someone asked a different question. Instead of, "Why is this happening?" they asked, "Who is this creating a problem for?" Instead of, "Why would anyone pay for this?" They asked, "Who would pay to make this problem disappear?" Instead of, "This is a terrible change," they asked, "Who is going to benefit from this change?" That shift sounds small, but it changes what your brain searches for. And what your brain searches for determines what you notice. Your environment can quietly limit your income this way. If everyone around you talks about work as something you simply endure, you become very good at noticing jobs, but terrible at noticing systems. If everyone talks about money as something you earn by working more hours, you become very good at noticing tasks, but worse at noticing leverage. If everyone around you sees networking as asking people for favors, you may never notice that relationships can also be information systems. People know things you don't know. They see problems you don't see. They have access to industries you haven't entered. They hear about changes before they become obvious. Your network isn't only a collection of people. It can become an extension of your perception. But there's another problem. Even when you notice an opportunity, you may reject it before investigating it. Because your brain doesn't only filter information, it also protects your identity. Imagine someone who has spent 10 years thinking, "I'm not entrepreneurial." They notice a small business opportunity. Their brain doesn't necessarily say, "This could be interesting." It says, "That's not for people like me." And the opportunity disappears. Not because it wasn't real, because it contradicted the person's existing identity. This happens everywhere. I don't have the right background. I don't know anyone. I'm too old. I don't have enough money. I've never done that. People like me don't do things like that. These statements feel like facts, but many of them are actually filters. They determine which possibilities you're willing to investigate. And this is where high-opportunity people often behave differently. They don't necessarily believe they can do everything. They simply don't reject possibilities as quickly. They investigate, they ask questions, they test, they gather information. They are willing to look stupid for a few minutes in exchange for discovering something valuable. That matters because most opportunities don't arrive with a label saying, "This is your opportunity." They usually arrive disguised as something inconvenient, a problem, a transition, a confusing situation, a new technology, a person you almost didn't talk to, a skill you don't yet have, a market nobody around you understands, and sometimes a failure. This is why two people can experience the same setback and walk away with completely different outcomes. One asks, "Why does this always happen to me?" The other asks, "What did this reveal?" One sees damage, the other sees information. Neither reaction changes what happened, but one reaction extracts more value from it, and that's the deeper mechanism. Opportunity recognition is partly the ability to convert information into possibility. You see something, you connect it to something else, and suddenly its meaning changes. A person complains about a problem. Most people hear a complaint. Someone else hears market research. A company struggles with a repetitive task. Most people see annoying work. Someone else sees an automation opportunity. A new technology creates confusion. Most people avoid it. Someone else learns it early. The difference isn't always intelligence. It's what they are trained to look for. And you can train this, not by becoming permanently optimistic. Optimism can actually make you blind to risk. Instead, train yourself to become more curious. When something changes, don't immediately ask, "Is this good or bad?" Ask, "Who benefits from this? Who loses? What new problem did this create? What old problem just became easier to solve? What is becoming more valuable? What is becoming less valuable? What are people frustrated by right now? And what are they already spending money to avoid?" These questions force your attention toward possibility. And there is one more question that might be even more important. What am I currently unable to see because I have already decided what is possible for someone like me? Because your biggest limitation may not be a lack of opportunity. It may be a narrow definition of what counts as an opportunity. You may be waiting for a promotion while someone else is building a skill. You may be waiting for someone to discover you while someone else is creating proof of their value. You may be waiting for the economy to improve while someone else is learning which problems the economy is creating. You may be waiting for the perfect moment while someone else is collecting small advantages, and eventually, those small advantages compound. The person who constantly looks for opportunities begins to appear lucky. But what looks like luck from the outside can be attention from the inside. They notice the person. They notice the trend. They notice the problem. They notice the gap. They notice the change. And because they noticed it early, they had time to act. That's the part most people miss. Opportunity is not only about seeing what exists, it's about seeing it before everyone else agrees that it matters. And you don't need to become a completely different person to start doing this. Tomorrow, take one ordinary part of your life, your job, your neighborhood, your industry, your daily frustrations, your conversations, and instead of asking, "What's wrong with this?" ask, "What is changing here? What problem is getting bigger? What are people struggling to solve? What is becoming easier? What is becoming harder? And where is there a gap between what people want and what they are currently getting?" You are not looking for a $1 million idea. You're training your brain to detect signals, because wealth doesn't always begin when you earn more money. Sometimes it begins much earlier, the moment you start noticing what everyone else is ignoring. The world may not suddenly contain more opportunities. You may simply become better at seeing the ones that were already there. And once your attention changes, your choices change, and eventually, your life can change with them.